¿Qué pasa, YouTube? Okay, what's up, YouTube? Welcome to week number 5. Yes, week number 5 of VDL Season 8, where your Carolina Haxers are taking on Stall 8 and his Lake Erie Lugia. His channel link will be down below. Definitely go ahead and check him out. So we are currently sitting at 3-1, if I'm not mistaken, after taking a pretty devastating loss last week. That was probably one of the ugliest and worst losses that I've had in a very very long time. So yeah, hopefully we can bounce back here heading into week number 5. So looking at our matchup here, Stall has the ever so terrifying Spectrier, which to the untrained eye might seem like it's a bad mon because its coverage is not really good. But because of its speed, its power, and its supportive moves with the proper teammates, this thing is actually regarded as a high-end threat. It's got a very high ceiling. So he built around it pretty well. He's got some very scary mons. Terra Slitherwing is very annoying. Grimmsnarl, Quagsire, Metagross, Cyclizar, and Rillaboom, all very annoying Pokemon. Cryogonal and Mewmore are Pokemon as well. I don't expect them to come. And not to mention that Sneasler with Dire Claw is a giant problem. So with that being said, let's take a look at our first team member here, which is going to be our own speedy offensive threat, and that is going to be Meowscarada, rocking a Protect Life Orb 3 attack set. Protect is literally just there for first impression from the Slitherwing, which he could run. I didn't see it in mocks. I think I had like 1 or 2 mocks. I think it was 2 mocks. I didn't see it, but it's still a potential option, and it's just going to be really annoying if he does have it. So scouting out for that, it's really nice. Knockoff plus Play Rough hit everything pretty hard. Flower Trick, I was really debating on whether or not I want to have here. I could switch it up to something else, but I guess it does kind of make sense if he does have Reflect, Prankster, and Light Screen on the Grimmsnarl. So for right now, we're just going to keep it. I think it could do some stuff. I don't expect Quagsire in this matchup, mainly just because of Meowscarada, so we'll see how things go. Next off, we have Salamence, which is actually able to easily win here if the Quagsire does not come, or if we are able to get rid of Quagsire, because after a Dragon Dance, we outspeed the entirety of his draft, as long as he's not rocking a Scarf on one of his speedy threats, or the Sneasler does not have its Unburdened proc. So that's going to be really nice. Dual Wing Beat plus Temper Flare hit everything for neutral or super effective damage. Not to mention that this is just a really good pivot into his physically offensive threats. Next off, we have our Terra Captain, Conkeldurr, rocking a Terra Flying this time around with Assault Vest, a very bulky mixed defensive set, just because this is able to take hits from both his physically offensive threats that are not boosted and his specially offensive threats that are not boosted. And look at his squad, look at Terra Blast Flying. It is very more or less free. His only resist is Mewmore, and unless he brings something like Terra Electric or Steel on the Slitherwing, which I really don't expect, then Terra Blast Flying hits his entire draft for some really good damage. So next off, we have Iron Moth, a very bulky physically defensive set here. We have enough speed for the Rillaboom, if I'm not mistaken. I don't expect Cryogonal. I mean, Cryogonal is a Pokemon if he wants to bring it. I mean, we are Ice Week, but I just don't feel like Cryogonal does anything in this matchup, so I'm really not concerned about that. And then outside of that, we do not speed Spectrier, Sneasler, or Cyclizar, but we do take hits from that if we do invest in our bulk, which we did do here. And with Morning Sun 3 attacks, we're able to do some really good damage to his entire draft. I debated on whether or not I wanted Agility, just because that would give us a potential sweeping option, but these 3 moves hit everything for really good or super effective damage with it, which I think is good enough. So next off, we have Ting Lu, aka Boo, rocking a very bulky mixed defensive set here. We are Choppleberry, just in the options that we need to take a close combat from the Sneasler. After my mock, I did realize Sneasler is actually really problematic, so if we can bait it in with Ting Lu, then we can live a hit, because it most likely will have close combat. It lowers its defense, and then from there, Stomping Tantrum, even though it is weaker than Earthquake, will be able to knock it out. And we have Spikes over Stealth Rocks, just because Rocks and Spikes more or less do the same damage to the entirety of his team outside of the Mewmore and Cryono, which I really don't expect. So I figured that's our hazard of choice, and then Ruination and Whirlwind are just there to disrupt his team. And then our final team member is going to be Clefable, aka Torta. This is Unaware, Boots, Calm Mind. Encore is really nice to stop any potential setup or recovery from his side, and then Calm Mind will allow us to try and break easier through his squad. Once the Metagross and the Sneasler are gone, and if he's not a fairy resistant Terra type on Slitherwing, this can honestly just come in and be a giant problem for him to deal with. So with that being said, let's jump into the battle. Okay, pause YouTube. Okay, what's up YouTube? Welcome to week number 5 of VDL season 8. So unfortunately, this week will be post-commentated from my opponent's perspective, because during this week I was just way too busy. There's so many games I had to play while I was not at my PC, so I apologize. Hopefully, definitely I think week 6 though will be live commented. I haven't played week 6 yet, so hopefully that'll definitely be live from my perspective. But yeah, check out our opponent's stall. His channel link will be down below if you guys are excited for this. But make sure to like and leave a comment down below. So going into this matchup, I do not know the items that he has on any of his mons, so that's how I'll be commentating and maybe eventually just pointing that out as the match goes on. So if you guys might have skipped the team builder, then you will know going into this matchup, my lead is going to be our Terra Flying Conkeldurr, because he does not have the best flying resist on his squad, and I want to start off with pressure immediately because this matchup is actually rather annoying. Spectrier is a giant problem if it starts to get its boots going, and if my Clefable is gone. So we end up leading off. I said boots, didn't I? It's boosts going. So Conkeldurr is our lead. I'm going to go straight for the Terra Flying, as he ends up leading off with his Terra Ghost Slitherwing, which Slitherwing is a very interesting Pokemon. This is definitely something I want to try out in a future draft league. Regardless though, I'm going to go either straight for my knockoff or my Terra Blast. Terra Blast probably might be a little better just because he does not have any flying resist going into this matchup. I think he ended up leaving his Metagross, if I'm not mistaken. Also, Mewmore is not a Pokemon, so I'm not even really concerned about that. Knockoff also is not entirely too bad, as he decides to go for the U-turn, getting off a little bit of chip damage on us as he's debating here on what he wants to do. Regardless though, I just want to start applying pressure immediately, just so we can get the momentum going in our favor, as he actually does bring in the Quagsire. I checked the calc from the damage. He most likely is a very physically defensive variant of Quagsire, as getting rid of the Rindoberry is very handy for our Meowscarada in the back. Funnily enough, I almost did not bring Flower Trick on Meowscarada. So at this point, I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do. Do I want to go for a Drain Punch? Do I want to go for the Terra Blast? See what he wants to go for, as he actually ends up going for the Toxic on our Drain Punch. I'm not sure why he decided to Toxic us. This is actually kind of good for us because we do have Guts. Now our attacks are going to be even more boosted. And here I remember thinking, do I want to switch out, or do I want to force him to waste his recovers? Because if worse comes to worse, then I can stall him out of recovers, and that'll be really good for us, because the only way I have to hit this for super effective damage is on my Meowscarada and my Iron Moth, and obviously I don't want to switch in Iron Moth on this Quagsire because I don't want to take a potential ground move or even a water type move. So I'm figuring that I might as well just try and do some damage, see if he does want to go for the recover, or maybe he'll try to go for a hazard, either rocks or spikes. Regardless though, he does go for the recover, I believe, as here I switch into my Meowscarada thinking that he would go for another recovery, and this is really nice because now what I can do is potentially get off a huge hit on something with just a Flower Trick, or I could go for the knockoff expecting him to want to switch out, or maybe even go for the Play Rough. Unfortunately, we don't have U-turn because we are Protect 3 attacks, mainly for the fact that I was really terrified of First Impression from the Slitherwing, because that thing absolutely destroyed us even if we did change our typings. So I figured that I might as well just be as offensive as I can be, especially because we are life orbed. So he's going to decide to bring in his Sneasler, as I go for the flower trick if I'm not mistaken. So if I had gone for the play rough, it would have done a little bit more damage just because it would have been neutral as opposed to being resisted here with the crit. So we get off about 49%, which means he's probably not running too much bulk investment. So thinking here that he might just go for a Dire Claw or potentially just go for a close combat. Since he had the air balloon, I'm expecting him to be a setup variant of Sneasler, so I don't think he's going to go for something like the U-turn or go straight for the offensive move. So I'm going to try to bring in my Iron Moth here in hopes that he did try to Swords Dance, expecting me to switch out, and because of my bulk investment, I should live a +2 hit from full HP, but he does decide to go for the Dire Claw. And at this range, even if he does have the Rock Slide, as you see here, I still will be able to tank the hit and in return get off a huge amount of damage with either my Fiery Dance or the Dazzling Gleam. Unfortunately though, he gets the flinch on us. Now this really sucks. After checking the calcs, I don't think I would have knocked him out with Fiery Dance, but I would have put him in range of where Mach Punch from my Conkeldurr would have knocked him out. So that might have been a little bit useful, because now with him knocking out my Iron Moth, I lose a potential offensive threat to him, something that also hits the Quagsire for super effective damage, and now I have to bring in one of my defensive options. Now I could have brought in Salamence here, which would have been able to get the Intimidate off on Sneasler, but knowing my luck, if he had gone for Dire Claw, he could have potentially put us to sleep. And Salamence actually has a good chance of winning this matchup if we're able to get rid of the Quagsire or weaken it to the point where my dual Wing Beat will be able to knock it out. So I bring in my Tinglu because we are rocking the Chople Berry. Luckily, he falls for it and he doesn't go for the Dire Claw, fishing for a status. As we take the close combat, down goes to Sneasler. So this does kind of suck. I mean, Chople Berry didn't realistically help out for too much else, unless for some reason he close combated me with his Slitherwing here. But I mean, he's got U-turn, he's got first impression, so I feel like that might have been a bit of a throw there, a bit of a fishing out to see if he would have fallen for that. So I guess it popping on the Sneasler is not the worst thing ever. This is really nice because now I don't have to worry about Dire Claw, man. Sneasler with Dire Claw is very, very, very annoying. So in comes the Slitherwing. I don't really have the best switch into this because I also did lose my Iron Moth. On top of that, I guess he could have Earthquake. I'm a little bit concerned though that he could just go straight for the U-turn, which I mean is not the worst thing ever. I guess maybe I should have stayed in. I could have expected him to switch out, and then maybe I could have got up a Spike, or I could have gone for a Ruination on something that was coming in here. As he does go for the U-turn, this does unfortunately give him a chance to go into either the Grimmsnarl or the Cryogonal. I figured it would be Cryogonal just because it is faster than my Salamence, unless I am Scarfed, which I mean Scarfments didn't make much sense in this matchup anyway. So obviously I am fearing him having the Ice type move here, and he's got Confuse Ray for some reason on Cryogonal. I just noticed that. I don't know why he's got Confuse Ray. Is that not a banned move? Am I tripping? That's a luck-based move. I don't know. Semantics, it doesn't come into play in this actual battle itself, so a little spoiler alert there, but I'm pretty sure Confuse Ray is banned. I don't know. I'll have to check with the mods. Regardless, though, it is what it is. As I bring in my Clefable, he switches into the Quagsire on my Moonblast. This sucks because obviously we know that he's got Toxic, and I am unaware with Boots. So if I get Toxic, I'm going to be taking that Toxic damage every single turn, unlike if I was Magic Guard. So yeah, he does not know that we are Boots unaware though, so we can kind of keep that in mind here. So I'm going to switch out thinking, okay, he's going to go for the Toxic again, but he actually pulls a double here into his Slitherwing, and this is actually not the worst thing ever, honestly, because we are Guts boosted. We have Terra Blast flying. We also have Guts boosted knockoff. If he's Colbur Berry, we can pop it here, or we can just get off a huge hit on something with Guts boosted Terra Blast flying. And I believe I do end up going for the Terra Blast here, just on the off chance that he either brought in the Quagsire or he brought in the Grimmsnarl. As he does bring in the Grimmsnarl, this does a huge chunk of damage to him, and this puts us in a really good spot because now I can knock him out with our next hit, and there is a good chance that I might be able to live another hit from this, so I could stay in here and knock him out. But thinking that maybe he'll go for some type of screen, I decided to bring in my Tinglu here because this might give me a chance to get up a Hazard or severely weaken or just knock out this Grimmsnarl outright. It is very low, so I could just be aggressive and go for the Stomping Tantrum to try and finish him off. I guess hazards aren't really that important because he does have Cryogonal, which I was assuming more than likely would have Rapid Spin. It would force him to go for the Rapid Spin, giving me a chance to bring something else in. But I guess in a sense, I should probably try to keep up offensive pressure as he decides to go for the bulk up. Luckily, we live the Spirit Break because we are a plus defense in nature with some investment, and down goes the Grimmsnarl. So bulk up was something I was not expecting. As you can see, he also had the weakness policy, so that could have actually been a little bit dicey if we popped his weakness policy. Luckily though, we didn't fall into that trap, and down goes the Grimmsnarl as in comes the Slitherwing. Unfortunately at this point, Ting Lu is very, very low. We have no more use for Boo here. He knocks us out with a U-turn crit. Obviously that crit did not matter. We were already at like 10%. That was a 100% KO, but down we go, as at least now we can get switch initiative and things are starting to drop. Unfortunately for us though, he still has Spectrier in the back, man. That thing can easily still snowball out of control and win him the match, and we still don't have any information on it. So if it's something like Specs or potentially a spell tag, maybe Will-O-Wisp Hex or something along those lines, it's still a giant problem. Funnily enough, I was considering bringing Terra Normal Conkeldurr, but flying just looked way too good offensively in this matchup. So hopefully we can keep Spectrier at bay and it's not going to be a giant issue. As he decides to bring in the Cryogonal, this is fine, as we can bring in our Meowscarada. I don't think he would be a Scarf Cryogonal with us having Conkeldurr and Iron Moth. So I take a bit of a risk here and I bring in my Meowscarada, and I'm trying to check calcs to see what might do the most amount of damage or what could knock him out here. And I think Flower Trick had the highest chance to knock him out here. I think the minimum damage, depending on his bulk, if it was just max HP, I think the min was like 98%, 99%. So I have to take that risk. I need to start getting some KOs here and putting us back into a controlling position. As in comes the Slitherwing after we knock out the Cryogonal with the Flower Trick. This now has me thinking, okay, he either has First Impression or he could have the Colbur Berry. So while I do have Protect, I don't necessarily want to go for that right now, because with Protean, we're turned into a grass type, so we lose our dark type stab. So even if I went for the Protect, I still don't think that knockoff would have knocked him out here, depending on the item that he had or the bulk investment that he had. So I decided to bring in my Salamence, as he does reveal to have the First Impression. I'm going to go for the dual Wing Beat. Unfortunately, we miss on the incoming Quagsire, but this is fine because I'm thinking, okay, he's either going to go for Toxic, he's going to go for a Hazard, or he's going to go for the Earthquake. So I can make an aggressive switch here into my Meowscarada to try to gain momentum back into our favor after he does one of the previously mentioned moves, but he reveals to have the Ice Beam. And this did actually kind of stop, made my heart skip a little beat here, because with that being super effective, it does do about 45-50% to a Meowscarada. And that really sucks, because having this thing at a good amount of HP might have meant that we could have taken a move from the Spectrier later in the match. However though, he's put in a position where he has to either sack this off or sack off one of his other two offensive threats, and he does decide to finally let the Quagsire go, which is really great for my Salamence in the back, because if we are able to Dragon Dance with Salamence, then that means that can definitely be our win condition. So in comes the Spectrier. I really don't want this thing to just potentially get up a nasty plot or just get a free boost in general, even though we do have Underworld Clefable. If he was something like Substitute, that could have been a little bit problematic, so I didn't want him to get away with the free Substitute or any type of other just annoying move in general. As I'm able to bring in Clefable here at this range of HP, there is no way he should ever 2 KO us with any type of offensive move that he wants to go for, unless he is Choice Specs. So I need to keep that in mind, and I believe I end up going either for the Moonblast or the Thunder Wave here. This last little bit of the game, it's probably the longest part of this match, because at this point I need to find some way to beat this Slitherwing and beat the Spectrier with my Clefable, or try to bring in my Salamence to Dragon Dance, and then that can win. So in comes the Slitherwing on my Calm Mind. He goes for the Earthquake, ends up doing about 45-ish%, I think, if the calc serves me correctly, if I remember correctly anyways. But we are a more Spadef bulky variant of Clefable, just because I did want to ensure taking 2 hits from the Spectrier if worse came to worse, which means the Slitherwing is able to hit us harder on our physically defensive side, which is a little bit problematic because, as you see there, even though we are at +1 with the Calm Mind, that Earthquake is still doing a really good amount of damage, and I need to at least get out of this exchange at above 47-ish%, I think. If he was max special attack, the most Shadow Ball did was like 45, around that range. So if I'm at 50%, I'm good, I'm golden, it's straight. So I go for the Moonblast. Turns out he is running Assault Vest, because that did absolutely nothing, especially with us being at +1 special attack. So this is a little bit annoying. I'm now figuring out more information about the Slitherwing, and I really wish I had been able to get some type of offensive damage on this or got up a spike with my Ting-Lu. However though, for the next couple turns, I'm going to try and Moonlight back up to a decent amount of HP and condition him into just constantly spamming Earthquake, so that way once I'm healthy enough I can bring in my Salamence as I do here. And with us being a flying type, we're going to take no damage from the Earthquake, which is absolutely amazing, because now I'm in a position of where I can either go for the Dragon Dance or I can go for the dual Wing Beat, trying to just either get off damage on this or catch the incoming Spectrier. And at the amount of HP that we are at, because he's not life orbed and he's not a type of boosting item that I know of anyways, I'm pretty sure we can live a Draining Kiss if the damage calc serves me correctly. So I go for the dual Wing Beat as we're able to chip down the the Slitherwing. We have Iron Moth, he's got Slitherwing. So that's really nice, as now in comes the Spectrier. Because of that U-turn damage, I think the roll is now in his favor to potentially knock us out. Regardless though, I still need to just stay in here, and at this point I'm just putting everything in on my Clefable. What I could also do though is bring in my Conkeldurr and sack that off, because if he doesn't go for the offensive move, because of our Assault Vest, as you saw here, even after the toxic damage, we still will be able to live a hit, which is really nice. So he is faster than us. He is going to be able to knock us out with the second Shadow Ball here, which is not the worst thing ever. He does get the Grim Neigh boost, but again, we are unaware Clefable, and we are above 50% HP. We are at 95%, which means we easily tank any one move, and then from there, as long as he doesn't get a crit or get a special defense drop, what we can do is go for the Calm Mind and try and recover out of range of what he wants to do. As I actually end up going for the Moonblast, this in hindsight was probably a bad play on my end. I should have honestly gone for the Calm Mind first. It turns out that he is running some type of bulk investment, because that Moonblast does absolutely zero. So now things are starting to get a little bit dicey, especially because I'm running really low on my Moonlights. We only have 8. I've already used about like 5 or 6 of them, and I decided to go for the Calm Mind here, and I'm like checking the calcs. I'm making sure I can live 2 hits after a +1 boost. I'm like, alright, this is do or die. It literally comes down to whether or not Torta here is going to be able to 1v1 the Spectrier and hopefully get out of this exchange with enough HP to take on the Slitherwing, or if we are at least able to beat the Spectrier, we still have Mence in the back, which after the Intimidate on Slitherwing, Mence should theoretically beat Slitherwing 1v1. So I go for the Moonblast there as he decides to switch out here into Slitherwing. I believe at this point I only had 1 Moonlight left, and I decided to be aggressive, going for the Moonblast, knocking out the Slitherwing as it switches in. And now, as long as he does not get a crit, as long as he does not crit us, we can win. And luckily he does not get the crit. Down goes the Spectrier, and Clefable once again pulling through for us with the unaware Calm Mindset. Man, I'm not gonna lie, Clefable has really impressed me through this season. It's won us a good amount of games, and it has just been an absolute beast of a mon. So yeah, hopefully week 6, I'm pretty sure, should be live commentated. I should be doing that game live tomorrow, actually, after recording this. So week 6 will be live, If you guys did enjoy, make sure to like, leave a comment, answer the question of the day, and I will see you all next week. So thank you all for watching. Later, everybody.